Hello, this is Malorian, and what this video is going to be is pretty much my final thoughts of the Warhammer tournament. Pictures of the mini game and other people's armies are going to go floating by, and I'm just going to kind of talk about the tournament, my list, how I did, and all those types of things. So I guess while we're talking about the mini game here, last year they did this kind of like race course where you had to like go around and do 2 laps. First one at the end wins. And this year they made a really neat change where they did like a Regiment of the Renowned. You took 100 points, made up a little squad, had these little mini games, and whereas last year the little horse race thing was kind of, you're kind of sitting there watching, everybody's having fun, but they're only doing something during your one turn, right? Then you got to wait till everybody else moves their horse. In these mini games, people were playing this mini stuff all the time, right? And it kind of went towards, I think, I'm not sure if it was a separate one or towards your overall, but either way, it was just like, hey, play 5 games, have fun, and it really was a great little thing to do in between games. So there's that part there that I really think was a good change. Only thing I feel bad about this with this mini game is that the actual board last year for the kind of racetrack was beautiful. I hope they can find another use for it. Otherwise, talking about my placement. So obviously I went with 1 massacre loss, 4 massacre wins. I was feeling really good for placing somewhere, but I knew there was at least the one guy that got 5 massacre wins, and then another person too that had exactly the same score as me. So I was hoping we were going to come in second and third, but unfortunately somebody else came in second. That other person barely beat me out by 2 points overall, and so I came in fourth. And hey, like fourth out of 50 people-ish, that's not that bad, right? I like it. That's respectable. But one of the things that was just killing me is just knowing how close I was. Especially with that first game, if you remember, I put myself down for a massacre loss, but it was actually just a minor loss. We just didn't add up the points. And this is, again, first 2 things in this. First of all, this is completely my fault. I mean, I shouldn't be going into the end of a game just saying, oh yeah, it's a massacre. I'm a veteran. I should say, like, hey, let's actually add this up. The big thing is that in this case, you had to have a difference of 1,700 points, where normally you just need to have double the victory points. So looking at it with that way, yeah, it would have been a massacre like that. But however, the way it was, where you need that difference, all of a sudden, yeah, I should have looked into it. The second thing is too, is you can't really look at it from the end of a tournament and say, hey, if I got these extra points here, I would have won this. Because obviously if I would have got just a minor loss in that game, that would have been changing up my matchups all the way through. So really, who knows what would happen. But another thing too I was kind of kicking myself for is maybe not doing better with my painting scores or something like that, because what they had going into this tournament was a score list for your painting, and I mean it's always been something that's been holding me back. I paint to tabletop quality. I know I could be doing better, but it's these little things that kind of hold me back sometimes. My sportsmanship score was good and fine. It's just, yeah, little things like that could have put me over the edge. But either way, like I said, fourth place out of, it was something like 46, 48 people. I'm totally happy with that. So very happy with how I did. Let's go next on to my thoughts of the tournament. Like I said before, this Warhammer'd is my favorite tournament of the entire year, and it still holds the same for this tournament now. Really just the way it's run, the different missions, the beautiful terrain. I mean, again, you guys in the UK, if you're listening, you guys are used to playing in places where you get beer and stuff and there's a bar there. This is pretty different, right, for here in Alberta, where most places aren't like that. So that's all great. And again, on the scenarios, right? Normally, if you go to some other places, it'll either be out of the rulebook scenarios or slight changes. These ones are just all over the place. Every single table is a different scenario. Now, I know there's some frustration with some of them. I know that Matt Reeson really didn't like the vampire one. It was, actually kind of funny to listen to how angry he was at it. But really, what these things usually do overall is they force you that whenever you're going into the game, that you have to have a balanced list. And it kind of isn't what you might think at first, like, oh yeah, this scenario really favors this, and this scenario really favors that. But really, what you need going into a game is a balanced list so you can handle any situation you come up against. Like in that one where I had to go against the Shire and go and loot. If you don't have little fast cab units and chaff, you can't go around and loot while you're doing this stuff, right? If you don't have the big hard hitters, how are you going to destroy that tree? It's all these things like this where you just need to have that balanced list to deal with everything. And as well, it's not just a balanced list to also beat your opponent. You have to also be a person that it really brings out the general in you, especially for these ones where it's completely just scenario. The ones where you're trying to sneak off the messengers or whatever else, where you really have to say, you know what, it doesn't matter who kills and destroys what, as long as I do the objective. And I really love games like that. So overall, very well done. I know next year they're going to try and make it even bigger. Hopefully, you know, the one thing that holds it back is because everything is so specialized with these tables that of course, he can't just jump up and say, hey, I'll go from 50 to 100 people, because it takes some time to make all these tables and stuff like that. Even though I'm sure if he jumped up to 100, he could probably sell it. You know, let's say this. I would say I guarantee he would get 75, but 100 people is not out of the realm of possibility. Looking also something I want to talk about who actually won above me. I didn't really touch that on the standings. So of course I came at fourth with my Orcs and Goblins. The person that beat me out in third actually had this kind of crazy monster list for Warriors of Chaos. And you're probably thinking just like Demon Prince and Chimeras and stuff like that. But no, remember you also have Storm Magic and stuff like this. So he actually took oh, what's his name? Like the Super Shaggoth with the big thunder hammer and stuff. That special character, Kolic, there you go. And he had like a Lamassu, and he had all these different monsters all put together in one. So kind of a really cool but very scary army all at the same time. You get like one chance to take this thing down, and then it's all over you. Meanwhile, in second place, Wood Elves. Yeah, just Wood Elves. He didn't really, from what I saw, he didn't really take any extra monsters or anything like that. He did take a unit of Harpies that looked pretty cool because he converted up his Treekin to have like these wings of feathers. That was pretty cool, but you know, nothing crazy there. And then the person that came in first place was doing a Nurgle themed Epidemius demon list. And one of the biggest stories of the whole tournament is the last game was him versus some High Elves. And the High Elves had the unit there with the Banner of Auto-Win, as people would call it, the World Dragon. We have the 2+ ward against magical attacks, so you have a 2+ ward against the entire demon army. Well, it turned out that the demon player massacred that High Elf player, and it really was just through solid, strong play. And so, you know, that's always good to see. It's good to see the haters kind of like put it in their place, like, oh yeah, why even play the game? It's not worth it. You know, you can still make things work. And by the way that he actually did make it work is by lining it up so that if he wanted to engage this unit, he had to clip the unit because he's kind of mainly behind a building with only a little bit sticking out. And of course, he just never reformed over. He just kept on taking the slight losses or just grinding down. So while he held that down, he just went around and killed everything else. So either way, one of the things that also really came up with that really kind of changes my thought of the local meta was the person who actually won. Because this is a guy that I've played against once before. He was Ogres. My Foot of Gork basically won the game for me first turn. But you know, I know he's a strong player, but I didn't realize how strong of a player. It turns out that this guy, his name is Corey Burns. I'll drop his name because he's probably out there in rankings lists anyway. He actually went out and he just won Adepticon. He was in the singles, the team for fantasy, and also in the team for 40K, and he won 2 of those. I can't remember which 2, but obviously this is a guy you have to be very careful with. So, and also then when he was talking about this and I was learning this, I guess there in Calgary, he's winning tournaments all the time. So he's definitely a person I'm going to have to watch for, especially because after this tournament, I know I'm going to be going to the Alberta GT to figure out of the 20 top people, who's the top person in all of Alberta. So going into this, I almost had like this little part of my mind, like this is the guy to beat. This is the person I got to find some way to beat. So, you know, it's kind of funny because normally I've been trying to force myself back into friendly play. But between this tournament and looking forward to the next tournament, I'm now like, you know what? I just need to kick some butt. And, you know, I guess really all the other tournaments you kind of do want to have fun at, like this one here, Warhammer'd. This is the one to have fun at. But this next one coming up, yeah, I want to kick some butt. But anyway, we'll talk about that one later. Next thing I want to talk about is my list. So breaking it down, first of all, I want to talk about my war boss with the wizard hat. Now, when I first put this into my list, the main idea was this is my way of scaling my army back. This was my fun choice. But you know what? I'm starting to see that at these large games, this is a very solid tactical choice. First of all, you have the Leadership 9, which is great for whatever the situation. And then the other part of it too is that, you know, the Foot of Gork and these things are nice, but one of the things you don't really have in there, other than your Eerie Go spell, which is kind of random, is you don't have any really good buffs or debuffs. And I gotta tell you, when I got these things like the Weapon Skill 10, Initiative 10 Trolls, that was amazing and so strong. And it's also a thing too where like with the Foot of Gork, you can do that across the board, but once you're engaged, what are you going to do? And things like Here We Go don't even affect trolls, right? Only orc units. So having these little extra spells that can come from all these really nice lores was a very nice thing to have. And again, I mean, maybe we wouldn't do this in a smaller point game, but at 3,000 points, this is a very strong choice. And I pretty much in my mind, I've taken it out of this is a fun choice and put into, you know what, this is actually a competitive choice at the larger levels. Then I had my level 4, who of course had the scroll and the Iron Curse icon. Really nothing there I can say that I would change. Everything worked out very well. I was kind of worried a little while there for some of the games that I'd be death sniped, so maybe I should have gone for some magic resistance or something like that to try and keep my characters all safe. But in the most part there, yeah, it's just, you know what, he does what he's supposed to do. So that's all great. Same thing with the BSB. Going down to my core then, Savage Orc Biggins always doing their job. One of the things that was nice to see here is that other than the first game where they failed Animosity and got bogged down, the whole idea of putting them on a flank and then them just doing their thing really works when you have the other chaff to clear away redirectors. So when you have those Savage Orc Biggins on a flank and then have, say, like a Wolf Chariot to say, like, hey, Eagle, get the hell out of here. And then all of a sudden these savages on the flank can do their job. They don't care about being away from the general because they're immune to psych anyway, so it's not like they can be panicked. And yeah, that worked out very well. The Night Goblin Bunker, what can I say? They always do their job. And then we get down to my chaff. Now, as far as my Wolf Riders went, they basically did their job most of the time. One of the things is, though, is that I could be saving more points. Having the spears on them or the bows, especially the bows, really did nothing this game. You know, sometimes I like having the bows on them to try and strip off a charm shield, say like on a Demon Prince or something. But for the most part, I could be saving a lot more points. This really comes down to also that really when I'm going to Calgary and I'm dealing with how they like taking monsters and like the Storm of Magic stuff, why am I not taking Saber Tusks? And this really comes down to the whole idea that I usually am kind of like a purist, right? I just like what's in the main book. This is why I have a big deal with Chaos Dwarves. And really, I got to kind of say, you know what? I asked around. It seems like Storm Magic is here to stay for the most part. So obviously, whenever I go to somewhere that allows it, I really have to start taking advantage of the models that are in there. Because, I mean, 55 points for 5 Wolf Riders with shields, that's pretty cheap for a throwaway unit. But what is it, like 21 points for a Saber Tusk? Yeah, I got to start looking at these things and actually using them. So I'll look into doing that, especially with Animosity. That's one of the things I had a couple of problems with, is with these guys, my Fast Cav, they're 5 models, might fail Animosity, and that was kind of an issue. A Saber Tusk, no Animosity. So definitely something to look into for the future. Then we have my Black Orcs with the Flaming Banner, and really they did their job as well. It seemed a lot of times because oddly enough, out of the 3 units, they're my weak unit. So a lot of times they're kind of like holding back while the other 2 main hordes do their job. But for the most part, they're fine. It was kind of really embarrassing having them slapped around by Toughness 6 skinks. But hey, that's what happens. That's the magic phase. So overall, you know, I was never hurt by the fact that I gave them the Flaming Banner. In fact, it just helped me when I was going up against that tree. But and also against Matt Reeson's Crypt Horrors if it ever got to combat. But yeah, I don't feel bad taking them whatsoever. Then we get to the trolls. And I mean, I know sometimes in the past my troll hordes is like if I ever take it out, boom, they're gonna be purple sunned. In this game here or this tournament, they did fantastic. I can't really think right now of a single game that they didn't do something. I mean, even in my Empire game, where really all they did was stand there, try and set up the charge, and get purple, or not a purple signed Pit of Shades. Even then, it was almost like they was taking my opponent's complete focus so I could be doing my job to be killing off the messengers and win the game. And in the end, even if the chariot wouldn't have killed that last messenger, I'm sure those trolls could have gone there and done it anyway. So yeah, just overall, they're freaking awesome, especially when they're buffed with that wizarding hat. That's just, that's just crazy. Going past that to all my wolf chariots. I at sometimes I felt that taking 3 was too much, and I should have just taken 2. But it's 50 points. Why not, right? And if you might lose one, there's nothing wrong there. Especially, they really helped me in the orc game, just trying to pick off those things. But yeah, for 50 points, how do you go wrong with a chariot, right? It's just a pretty nice thing to have. Same thing with all my war machines. I mean, okay, here's the funny thing with the war machines. I took them to deal with the Demon Prince, to deal with Terrorgeist, and to deal with the Phoenixes. I didn't face any of that stuff whatsoever. However, it always helped me out, right? There was no point where I was like, well, my war machines are useless, because even if they don't have prime targets, they always have something else. And hey, if nothing else, man, that Doom Diver saved my butt in the vampire game. I mean, if I didn't have that to kill that vampire, would have been a double loss. So really glad I had all those war machines. And really, that's my list. It was, I mean, overall, a very solid list. And apart from changing out some wolf riders to get some saber tusks, that's really all I'd really do to change it. I think it really is getting close to the point of being optimized. And yeah, I just really like it. So there you have it. Fantastic tournament. All of a sudden, I got like a new rival. Well, I wouldn't say rival, but it just is like a person with a target on it. It's almost like now going forward, this is the guy I want to beat. So either way, there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed all the battle reports, all the pictures. There are some very beautiful armies out there. Unfortunately, not all of them took their armies out while I went around taking the pictures. If you're wondering which is the army that was the demon one that won, if you remember the one picture where it shows like the big Papa Nurgle model. And he also has like a converted thing where it's like a soul grinder on a chariot thing. That's his army. Unfortunately for that one too, is pretty much all packed away when I was taking the pictures. But yeah, everything was looking so good. I wish I was a better painter. But there you have it. And man, we got another tournament next week. So we'll see you, not next week, next month, which is just, a few weeks away. So see you there. Bye.